I think the unique thing about me with my little girl is it was really hard to get her here. I had difficult pregnancies, and so after I had Scott, then the doctor told me I couldn't have any more babies because I had such a difficult time having children. And so Dad and I prayed about it, and we felt very strongly that even if I had to take a chance on my own health, that there was one more. And so I got pregnant about, probably 2.5 years after I had Scott, and we just felt like, well, this is the person we're supposed to be waiting for. And it was kind of strange because I didn't feel pregnant. And even though I went through all the morning sickness and everything, and I got to about 4.5 months along, and is usually when my morning sickness starts tapering off, and I was instantly not sick the next morning. And we just kind of barely announced to everybody, and I lost the baby. I didn't feel like it was, how do I say, it was a baby, but I felt like that something must have been wrong because there was still somebody, and it was another while before I was able to get pregnant and have Diana. And so when she was born, she was very little. She was only 6 pounds 2 ounces, and she was had a growth under her right arm, and it was a very strange, unusual thing where the lymphatic system would just shut down and harden off. And she was only 7 pounds and 1 month old when we had surgery. And I was in the hospital with her the whole time while Dad took care of everybody here, and for 10 days. And it was so rare that only one doctor had ever seen it, and he had just moved from California, and Diana was only the 4th child in his whole career he had ever seen it with. And I can't remember the name of it, but those were the things. It was just the lymphatic system shutting down. And so it was a 6-hour surgery for a little 7-pound baby, 1 month old. And I remember Grandpa Robbins, and he fasted and prayed and said, just please make her be a fighter. And so that little girl fought and fought to make it here. And so after 10 days in the hospital, I brought her home, and that very next day, there was something wrong with the little vacuum tube. She had 22 drains and a vacuum tube, and I had to run it all because no one knew how to do it, so the doctor taught me how to do it. But there was something wrong, and it was starting to build up white, and found out, I called the doctor, and he said, you get down here instantly. And they took her in and just said, we think she has staph. He did not dare not treat her, suspecting it was staph. And so he instantly put her on an antibiotic, and he said, okay, Mom, you go out of this room, and you go down the hall, and you get away because we can use no anesthetic. And so I couldn't do that. And I stood outside the door and listened to her scream for like 20 minutes. But then a baby's morphine kicks in, and they were able to clean the whole area, put 22 more drains on her. We came home probably like 2 days later, and Dad and I taped all the drains on her back and put her little dress on to bless her. And that little girl was a fighter, and she remained a fighter. In fact, there were times that we'd be talking, Diana and I, and she'd go, "Well, I bet you wish that Grandpa hadn't prayed for me to be so much of a fighter." And so I said, "Well, that's true." But she fought hard all her life for everything, and she was determined to be good to people and kind. And she had her down times, and we'd talk. But one of my favorite things was just like the rest of the kids, we'd stay up and talk for hours and hours and counsel each other but we always tried to let Diana know, Dad and I, how much we loved her. And even if she had struggles, or even if she had disappointments in herself where she wondered if she would ever have a chance to be married like the rest of her siblings and have children, and sometimes she'd get so discouraged and so down, and we'd spend hours and hours talking and letting her know that Heavenly Father has His promises and His time, and she read her patriarchal blessing a lot, and sometimes she'd come up and read it with me and say, when will these promises happen, or when will these promises happen? And I said, these promises aren't just for this life, they are for next life too, including the millennium. And so I just know that this last 5 weeks, that after meeting Elliot and feeling cared about and loved by somebody in a way different than her family, that was truly deep and meaningful to her. She was a little nervous, but she just sparkled, and she just was so darling. And she'd come in and we would talk, and she was just talking about how sweetly she'd been treated. And she'd never had that. She's always had friends and great friends, and she's very, very loyal. And if you have Diana as a friend, you have a friend for life, unless you violate that trust. And her friends, she just collects friends instead of ever leaving people behind. Like Barlow's been her buddy since 4th grade, and they've been inseparable and loyal, and every friend that she has feels the same way, and she's always been that way. And one thing is, she's always been a friend to Dad and I, and she's been more than our daughter. She's been very obedient, very loyal, and just as nicely said, Mom, I know you wanted me to go to the temple, but just I'll go on my time. And she did, and I just let that be, and because I told her, I says, you don't have to wait to be engaged or go on a mission. If let Heavenly Father tell you when it's the right time to go on a mission. To get your endowment. And then about the middle of January, she came up to me and she says, Mom, I'm ready. And I said, ready for what? And she said, I'm ready to get my endowment. And so we went down and got her temple. We got her interview. She had to have the interview and the temple recommend first, and then we were able to go get her clothes, and it was a thrill for me, because she made it possible for all my children and Dad's children to be in the temple all at the same time. And that is a mom's and Dad's dream. And not many people, even in the church, ever get that. And for Dad and I, she made that dream a reality. And it was, that night was just a payback night for Dad and I. And we laid and talked about that and how special she was, and how sweet it was to have her part of our life. And we've just loved her just as dearly as all our kids. and she's just so alive and kept this house alive and going, and we've enjoyed it and loved her, and appreciate what a hard worker she is, and on her callings in the church and everything. She was very dependable. She would always be there. Even if other people weren't, she was there, and she was doing her job and sometimes others. And she had a great testimony, and just absolutely loved music and her friends and her family, and that was her life. And she made all of us alive and excited about things, and she got great joy out of anything. And our family, we've not had a lot of money or anything, and so we've kind of had to make up our own entertainment and our own fun. And so it's like on the 4th of July, there was a ban on fireworks in Alpine, and so Diana brings Elliot, and we all go over to the park, and all of you do the shooting the water balloons at each other, and so we've always done football games in the backyard, and where she sneaks around and runs out of bounds so she can make a touchdown, and she's just always been really, really sweet, and just very faithful and very loyal, and really great to Dad and I, and tried not to ever be a burden to us, and we've just really enjoyed our little Peaches, and just enjoyed her helping us stay young and not really grow old, and so we just love her dearly.